Legendary sports reporter Frank Deford died in his home in Key West, Florida at the age of 78. He spent 32 years at NPR's Morning Edition, but he was also known for his work at Sports Illustrated, starting his career here in 1962. I'm joined by Ted Keith, senior editor here at SI, and Gabe Miller, copy chief for SI. For those who aren't familiar with his work, how would you describe his writing style?
Well, for me, I think that he's, this is not to take anything away from the legendary writers that SI has had for over 60 years or that have written for places that aren't Sports Illustrated, but for me, he's the best one who's ever done it because he could write short, he could write long, he could write funny, he could write serious, he could write with great empathy, with great skill. I mean, his word choices alone are the envy of everyone who's ever sat down at a typewriter, I think. So. To say that he's a giant in the field probably doesn't even do it justice. I mean, this is a guy who broke, first of all, into the pop culture realm. He starred in commercials for Miller Lite when Miller Lite commercials were a big deal. He had books that were turned into movies. He became a spokesman for cystic fibrosis. He won a presidential medal. I mean, he did everything that anyone could hope to accomplish in their career, and he did it as a sports writer. And he famously said, I'm not a sports writer, I'm someone who happens to write about sports, but even that sort of didn't speak to the length and the depth of his career and the impact that he had on everybody else who was merely a sports writer. He was able to sort of step outside of those bounds in a way that very few people are, and that, as well as just the pure talent that he had from the very beginning, is why I think he's probably the best one.
People would often stop and tell him what a fan he was among his fans, and he was unfailingly polite, and he possessed a stature that made people feel totally comfortable and yet knew that allowed them to also feel that they were in the presence of somebody who they always sensed was extraordinary and really was extraordinary.
Spanning his career, how do you think he changed sports journalism?
Well, I think the testament to the way that he changed it is the number of people he influenced. And you can look, I think Tony Kornheiser, who's gone on to his most fame for being on ESPN's, pardon the interruption, but was in his own right a very good long-form sports writer for a long time, and he has said that no one could do it as well as Deford. And he came along when Deford was really at the peak of his powers in the 70s and 80s, and Kornheiser got out of the game at a time when Deford was still writing great stories. So I don't think you can name a sports writer in this country who read Frank Deford's stuff who didn't consider him sort of what you were striving for.